man on the moon, how are you going to use it? Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good evening. My name is Lujain Al-Atiq. I'm an architectural engineer.
Hello, my name is Sarah Al-Maddah. I'm an artist and an architect.
Hello, my name is Liana Bassoud. I'm an architect.
My name is Lama Dertas. I'm an architectural student.
On behalf of the Faseelah team and I'd like to thank you all for attending today's talk. Faseelah Pavilion is one of the outcomes of Tanween challenges called Building Simplexity. The challenge objective was to design a complex structure that creates a complex structure utilizing the simplest form. And using the computer tools and technologies we have today, we were able to realize the structure that you can see outside. The challenge began with 3 design criteria, which were site, size, and material. We began researching and brainstorming and decided to pay a visit to the site, which was here at Ithra in the lush garden. We came across the Palm Plaza and we were fascinated by the different vegetations and trees that were there, especially the palm trees. And this is when, unanimously as a team, we decided to utilize the national symbol as our inspiration. So as an appreciation of our local heritage, we wanted the Faseelah Pavilion to portray the anatomy of the palm tree. The assembly is an integration of these elements all together at multiple dimensions. So the exterior of the Faseelah, the exterior of the Faseelah Pavilion is inspired by the tree trunk and how the texture is dense from the bottom and gradually becomes less dense at the top. And you can see that through our pavilion of the dense step-like texture, starting very dense on one side and gradually becoming less dense on the other side. Also, the surface of the pavilion is sliced into alternating planks, which resemble the saf part of the palm tree. And then we were also inspired of how those palm leaves are overlapping and how they create different shadows and give an optical illusion of a moire effect, which was represented also in our pavilion. And this is where the word Faseelah came from. Faseelah is an offshoot of a palm tree, and that's what we wanted to portray through our pavilion.
When we first received the competition criteria, we were interested in using straight elements to create a curved form or a curved shape. And that to us represented building simplexity. So we started with the simplest form that we can think of to apply the texture that we created, which to us was this parabolic section. Something that we thought a lot about is the user experience. We thought about it in a way where, first of all, the gradient of the size of the texture. So on one side of the pavilion, you would see the texture very small, and on the other side, it's more sparse, more stretched out, and that's because there's a gradient for the texture. It gets larger as it gets to the other side, and we wanted to do that because if the user is passing by the right versus if they're passing by the left, they would see something different. They would have a different experience. Something else was also the interior versus the exterior texture is also different. And in that way, at every angle that you see the pavilion, you would experience something different. You would see something different. Something very important as well is the shadow of the pavilion, which, as Lujain mentioned, creates this moire effect on the floor, and it creates like this beautiful, very unique flooring to the pavilion. We also thought about the nightlife and how we would light up this pavilion, and it was inspired by how palm trees were lit up at night. So you would usually see palm trees with a little spotlight, kind of like the light washing over the trunk of the tree, showing its texture and topography. And that's what we wanted to convey in the nightlife of Faseelah. When we won the competition, we were given the opportunity to make changes and iterations to our form. And what we went with was basically to have a small arch on one side and then a bigger arch on the perpendicular side, as you can see in this axonometric. What we wanted to convey in this shape is that we didn't want the user to just pass by the pavilion. We wanted the user to sit in it, to experience it. The advantage of this big arc that you see is that it maximizes the size where people can inhabit this pavilion. So if there was a workshop or some kind of event, you can occupy the area under the pavilion, but also occupy the area next to the pavilion, and you would get a similar experience. The shadow of the arch is something very important to us as well. That it kind of gives the illusion that it's a larger space. So it doesn't just become this confined pavilion with confined size. It becomes even larger, and even at different times of the day, the shadow moves and the space kind of changes.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So I would argue that the design part was maybe the easiest part in designing Faseelah and the construction phase. But we started seeing some challenges during the design development, where the plot size changed from being a square 10 meter by 10 meter to a more narrow rectangle 15 by 7 meters. And that was a challenge because of the short span and how we still wanted to emphasize the gradients of the texture from like going from small to big. So we used the computational tools to make some iterations to find the most optimal iteration with the most structurally sound iteration. And that's what we designed for now. And the second challenge we would say was in the construction phase, the material had to change. We originally designed the pavilion to be originally recycled from wood, and we wanted to make minimal interventions so that after the pavilion's lifespan, we can take it apart and recycle the wood again. But after extensive research and analysis of the material, we found out that it's pretty difficult to do so. It was difficult to find wood, recycled wood in Saudi, because it's not a very common recycled material. And we would have to make a lot of interventions on the wood to be able to do the pavilion. So we opted, instead of using new wood and not have the pavilion be recyclable after, we opted to use steel because of the short fabrication time and the flexibility in it. And it's also, it's still pretty recyclable. It's the most recyclable material in the world. And it is also, it will be stronger for the construction, the structural integrity of the pavilion. We also thought that it is more suitable for the Saudi context, given that our wood would be like treated heavily to be able to sustain the Sharqiyya environment. So steel would be more preferable, hopefully, and also we thought that it suits the Ithra site better than the wood, or the original wood.
Okay, so Faseelah was fabricated by Al-Bawardi Atqin Do-It Center. We used steel sections of 5 by 5 centimeters, and we had a total of 5,525 steel pieces that ran across the span of 300 elongated sections. So accuracy was very crucial during production. So what they did is they laid out each frame section on the ground, and they drew the angles, and they cut all the groups together. And so basically, they grouped each section, and they used like small steel bracing, as you can see, to hold the integrity of the arch. And imagine that they had to repeat this process for 300 pieces. So what they did is they grouped each 30 sections together to create 10 groups, and then they assembled the pavilion on site by bolting and welding the pieces together. So for the coating, we sandblasted the raw steel pieces, and then we painted them. They painted them and then coated them with like a small layer of epoxy. Move on. Okay, so as you can see in this picture, we tried to kind of create a dialogue between like the how the ambience of light would change the experiential quality at night versus how it would create a shading structure in the morning. That's also a night view. Move on. Yeah, so here you can see, if you can go back a slide, we can see that the pattern changes from the outside versus from the inside. So from the outside, you would see this tree trunk-like pattern, and from the inside, you would see kind of like a wavy structure.
Yeah, and the shadow, like we really focused and did some analysis using the computational tools to see how the shadow would look like in real life. And we're happy that it turned out almost exactly like the iterations. So this is the texture during the day. And this is seeing it from the lush garden. This is next to Athra. And this is, yeah, the last picture, right?
So thank you, everyone. We would like to... Dr. Christoph is with us. We'd like to thank Dr. Christoph as well, and Ithra Center and Atkin Center, and everyone that contributed to the success of this project. Now the floor is open to questions. Go ahead, please.
Well, it's amazing. Really fantastic to see. I recommend everybody go and have a look if you've not already seen it. But what next?
You tell us.
This project wouldn't be possible without Ithra's Tanween challenge. So I think hopefully more challenges will arise, and so that we have the opportunity, or like all designers have the opportunity to experience what we experience in terms of seeing their designs being built and realized in real life. So hopefully more challenges will arise.
And I think it's nice to see like the start of kind of like a computational design process in like in our region. I think like it's missing, so it's kind of like complementing Ithra's like beautiful curves.
And I feel like we can also develop this system that we have even further to suit even bigger scale buildings, and I think that would be very interesting.
Yes.
Hi, yes,
Yeah, I would pick up with the same thing. I would say that the philosophy of the project and of the whole workshop is something that demonstrates itself very well in the scale of a pavilion, because you can really highlight the affects that you can create with it. But the philosophy is applicable to any type of material or any type of building scale. So hopefully what's next, that means larger scale applications where the impacts can be felt at a greater scale.
Yes. Another question? Yes.
Yes, I have a question. You've used wood as a primary material for the structure. Will we be able to have the same consistency of this wood available in Saudi Arabia?
The short answer, I would say maybe no, because we actually had to change the material because of the difficulties of at this moment to do the pavilion out of wood. But hopefully in the near future we can see more wood construction in Saudi in a sustainable manner. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
So my question is in your thinking process to come up with the, eventually you selected the palm tree, but were there other objects that you thought about besides palm tree and why you ended up with a palm tree? I think you mentioned this already in the presentation, but were there other objects that you thought about that inspired you?
You wanna?
I believe that when we heard about the challenge and we were asked to create a wood-based structure, we wanted to look at what kind of wood we have locally in order to make it more sustainable. So I feel like that palm trees was one of the very first ideas that we had, and we stuck to it. Initially, we wanted to use palm tree wood specifically, and then we decided to go with the biomimicry part of it instead. Yeah.
Yes. Maybe Dr. Christoph, would you like to chip in?
Yeah, happy to. I think the idea of sustainable material use nowadays is a very different question than what it would have been a couple of decades ago because of the global trade opportunities. We can pretty much get any material anywhere we want. So the question of sustainability needs to be asked in a broader context where transportation opportunities still need to be taken into consideration as well. One of the reasons why I like to work with bamboo in a lot of projects is because it is by far the most sustainable construction material that you can work with, because it grows much faster than any wood, has strength properties that approximate certain steel types in tension, but it doesn't grow everywhere. It's not available where you're sitting right now, but it grows abundantly in the developing world or in the tropical world. But that doesn't mean it cannot be used, because it can easily be shipped to wherever you would need to be. Just like we're shipping our glass facades or our cement across the globe as well. So I think it's important to try to strike a balance between applications and material resources in the designs that we bring.
Here, I just wanted to talk, if you could talk a bit more about the constructability. I know that it was a very challenging part of the project. It ended up going above time and above budget, and you had to go and from your time as well to change some design and make decisions. I think that's the part where maybe a lot of architects, they draw a very nice drawing and then would leave that for the engineers to figure out. If you could talk more, and maybe even Dr. Christoph, about the challenges of figuring out things mid-project and what you have to do.
I would maybe suggest the time aspect. Like if we had more time, I think we could have figured out a solution to maybe do it in a sustainable manner. But yeah, basically the time aspect, because of we didn't have a lot of time, only 1 month to design, 1 month and a half to construct. So I think with more time, yeah, hopefully we would be able to achieve that.
I think, to be honest, it turned out pretty close to the renders we were thinking of. I think maybe deferring the pattern for from going into a tunnel-like structure into a structure with openings was the most challenging part in this process. Yeah. So figuring out the pattern across the different shapes, I guess.
And obviously, with the support of Atqin and the professor, we were able to solve the structure. And yeah, thankfully, we see it up there. It didn't fall yet, so thank God.
I mean, for the time that we had, it was amazing what this whole team achieved. And we honestly couldn't have done it without all of Ithra's help and Bawadi's help. It was amazing what we could achieve at the end.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you everyone for coming here. We would like to connect with you later on, maybe in future. You can go on ahead and check this project out, but for now, we'll have to run. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.